Hey folks, Adam here. I wanted to do a video on the Knights of Galahad 3093 Beta 9. Currently we have 8 Knights to work with, and I wanted to explain to you the passives and actives as well as showing you how some of that worked in game. So we're going to start with Arthur. Arthur is active. It's his ult is Q to activate those. He launches an orbital strike called Excalibur, and his passive is ping target suffering a 10% additional damage from all sources. Now to ping a target, you can click your middle mouse button when you're mousing over an enemy lance. There's also another trick you can use by going into the sensor mods. And with Arthur, you can use this enhanced tracking. Enemies hit by weapons are pinged, so you can automatically ping anything you hit, and your ping lasts 100% longer, so your whole team can do 10% more damage to that guy. You're debuffing that lance for your whole team with 100% duration. So that's a good synergy between enhanced tracking and Arthur's passive.
Executing.
That works well, especially with, let's say, javelins, sniper javelins, the energies. You can auto track, and you just hit somebody and it's bam, 10% debuff for as long as that ping lasts. Then, so to do his ultimate, the Q, let's just point at something. We hold down Q, and wherever your mouse is at, that's where that orbital strike is going to come from. Alright, so that is Arthur. Arthur is the default knight for new players. If they don't pick anything, they get him. So you'll see him running around a lot with new players playing him, not changing the knights, or people not knowing what to do, or people that select him because they do like his actives and passives. He is a good all-around knight to play with. And just as a side note for new players, the knight is essentially the pilot of the lance. You have the 4 sizes of lance you could play with. Think of the knight as the pilot. It gives you this active and passive. So our next knight is Morgan. She's our sneaky, cloaky knight of the crew. Her active, she can turn invisible for 12 seconds and has a 40-second cooldown. And her passive, which is even more powerful than the active, in my opinion, is she cannot be detected on radar. That includes from the map menu if you're running radar, like I do, strat calling. I'm watching the radar a lot. I can't see Morgan players on the radar on maps. So that is a big thing. And then the other part that's also important about her, if you're using a javelin with the auto homing or phalanx with the auto homing, they cannot track a Morgan. They won't auto home to her. She's essentially invisible to auto aim, if you want to think of it that way. That's built into the game, which that's one of the more powerful passives in the game, in my opinion. For her invisibility active, I want to show you. It's not quite invisibility. It's more, think of like the predator invisibility. You can still see a shimmer, and then also when you see the skim jets move around, you'll be able to see those, and you can see when they fire from. So let me give you an example here. So I go invisible, you can see the shimmer. You can really see those skim jets stick out, and then you can see where my fire source is coming from, kind of the muzzle flash, if you will. So it's not a true invisibility like what you would think of when you use the word. Think more like Predator. They're not impossible to fight against, but in a chaotic environment with a lot going on, somebody does go invisible, Morgan player goes invisible, they are kind of hard to keep track of, so they can use it to escape, or they can use it to push in on you and try and finish you off before they become visible again. The cooldown is pretty short. There are mods that can play with that too, but you can see it's already ready. Back up. So that is Morgan. Next, we are going to move to Nim.
Move Nim fast, win faster.
Probably the most popular for a lot of the brawling players that like to fight up close and personal, especially in heavy lances. She provides a lot of mobility for those the heavier, slower lances. Her active is she boosts your skim speed by 25%, reduces skim fuel consumption by 50% for 10 seconds. So you can use that both to escape and to push in, to dive on people to try and get a kill or chase them if they're trying to run. 30-second cooldown, so it comes up pretty quickly. But I think what most people really love about Nim is that her jump, her natural jump, lasts twice or goes twice as high, and she can initiate a jump in mid-air. So let me show you what I'm talking about there. There's a couple of tricks that you can do with that. So people that like to fight jumping around, think of other first-person shooters. So you've got the natural jump here, but with Nim, you can jump high and you can double jump. So you can fight up in the air, twist around, do a couple of things like that. The Q, the ult, looks like this. You can see I'm just holding down the skim fuel and it's not really going down very fast. So it's super easy to chase. Get the turbo pad there. And then also one other trick. You can do these jumps and spins as you're landing. You've got somebody chasing you. It's one of the things that you'll have a lot of players dive after you that it's harder to keep track of, harder to turn around and fight. Nim gives you a lot more agility and nimbleness than the other lances will, especially with being able to land and twist quickly and jump up in the air and flip around like that. So that is Nim. Like I said, one of the more popular knights in the game, especially for the melee types, or the brawler types rather.
Ready to
Owain would be next. Owain, his active and passive really go together well. Some about his passive first. So he takes 5% less damage per enemy lance within 50 meters up to a maximum benefit of 25. So if there's 5 enemies, let's say on a capture point, and Owain dives into them, or even stays within 50 meters of them, he would take 25% less damage from every weapon thrown at him. That's pretty good off the top, but then you look at what his active is. His active blasts enemies within 60 meters of him with a burst of energy dealing 675 to 2250, scaling with distance. So what this essentially is a point-blank area of effect, and it does a good amount of damage. The only bad side of it is I would say it's pretty easy to see coming because it has a big wind-up to it. Wind up, wind up, wind up. So you can kind of see it coming, and if you're in a quick lance, you can get away, or at least get far enough away where it doesn't really hurt. But you could also time that where if you're jumping into a group and you're about to land on them, you can have the wind-up already going and then have it blow up as you land, and there's really no way to dodge it. So a smart Owain player is going to play like that, where he just lands and smashes, and there's really nothing you can do about it. See some people playing Owain. He's not super popular, not compared to like Nim and Gwen, but he is played. Next, we're going to go to, I believe, Gwen. Yep.
Gwen.
So Gwen is what I would call the default capping knight, and what I mean by capping is playing the objectives, capturing points, capturing spawns, capturing bases, kind of gen killing, running around. We usually play alongside lights and mediums that are just kind of moving around real quick, especially to go for some of the spawns. It's easier to get there and move around in light than it is in medium because you get a bigger jump. She's kind of the go-to knight for that because she counts as 2 lances when capturing bases, spawn points, and supply caches. So it's essentially like having you and a buddy there. You're going to capture it faster. You're going to have more points to capture, say, a base. You only have to take down 3 gens instead of 4, or 2 gens instead of 3, depending on what's going on, to be able to capture a base, because she counts as 2 different people. So you can be there by yourself, and you can be behind enemy lines, sort of going around capturing. Then on top of that, her active is a large shield dome with 13,000 shields that protects against incoming damage for 20 seconds. What this is a big dome
Executing lance deploy sequence
that you can shoot out of, but you can't shoot into. Let me show you. So I can shoot out of the dome, but in it, you can see it stops at the edge there. And if this were in a place where you could see below it, like there was a bottom floor below this, you would actually see that the dome extends down into that. The dome counters, usually what we use it for is on base captures. We'll pop it down so when people are shelling the capture point with, say, secondary weapons or hellfires, it provides, or it's caliber from Arthur, it provides you a level of protection from that. It is definitely not, infallible. It is easy to kill when there's a lot of damage pouring down on top of it, but it could buy you the time to finish that capture and let everybody get out before people start dying, or before you just have to give up on the cap and move off of it. Spamming capture points is a pretty big deal these days for denial. So the dome is always helpful, and everyone loves having them around. Now, the one thing I will say about Gwen with the two capture points, I don't know if you saw it in the text there, but Gwen's capture points, the two lances, that doesn't stack. So if you bring two Gwens, it's going to count as 3 lances, not 4. Now, where you can start to cheat that a little bit is when you bring in an Izzy over here, and we'll talk about that when we get to her. But just keep in mind, for Gwen, 2 Gwens is not the same thing as getting 4 people there. It would be the equivalent of 3, and that's something to keep in mind when you're playing teams and you're trying to build a strategy.
Mordred.
Next, we're going to go to Mordred. This is kind of my go-to knight these days because Mordred's lance instantly teleports up to 130 meters forward. So you can do a lot of base movement where you're having to go vertical and move around into weird positions. And especially if you're playing a lighter lance, that if you used your jet jump, you would fly completely over the base into the next base even. The teleport lets you move around a little bit more effectively and more pinpoint action. Also, you can use it to, let's say you make a jump and you miss the jump, you make a jump and you're jumping away and somebody's diving in after you trying to come kill you, you can use the teleport to bounce up to a higher point, like toward the end of your jump. You can land up on top of a ridge or something and they can't chase you there. They would have to jump up there. They can't hit it. They already jumped to try and chase you, whatever. So it's a great getaway tactic. It's a great mobility tactic. It's, you can push into people with it. If somebody's getting away from you and you're diving after them and they're just faster than you are, you can dive into them using this and try and finish them off before they get away. Passive is a little bit underwhelming, but it works well if you're using Mordred as a killer. For every kill he gets, it reduces the cooldown on the teleport by 10 seconds. So if you got a kill, you teleport, you get another kill, you can teleport even faster to move around, so you can be bouncing around pretty quickly. Let me show you real quick. So, for instance, if I'm running from someone, and I want to get out of the way of the ground cover, bam, I can go here, and I can also hit Q again right after that within 5 seconds, and I bounce back to where I was. So let's say I'm on top of a ridge and somebody's chasing me, and I teleport off, and they jump off to chase me down. I teleport right back. Now they're at the bottom of the ridge, and I'm at the top, right? So you can get kind of tricksy with that. You can see the teleport's already up again. So look at, oh, I'm not going to make it, but I teleport up there and I do. So really good for controlling or having more control over where you go, increasing the jump distance, increasing the jump height, all those things. I really enjoy Mordred. I play a lot of him these days, and you can see it's already up again, so he's pretty quick. Jump off of here. Boom. Didn't even have to use my big jump. So that is Mordred. I believe next up we have K.
Time to make
K is one of my favorites from earlier betas. I don't play him too much anymore, but there are a few people out there that play him. And really the best reason to play K right now is there's a big, I would say, kind of a meta is running Corvus as the repair drone. And K's passive is damage done by K prevents enemies from being repaired for 15 seconds. So any damage he does, it doesn't matter if it's one bullet, one hit, whatever, for 15 seconds, that guy can't heal. With a Corvus, nobody can heal him. Like, he's just locked down. So any damage he continues to take during that time, he can't repair. And what you'll see a lot of is that people are trying to pop that repair drone, run around a corner, pop the repair drone and get some heals in, or different things like that. I used K to a funny effect in a beta 9 game where I was using javelins. I was using essentially a sniper build. I was just popping different people with a sniper build just to add that 15 seconds on there. And some of my friends were complaining about it until they realized it was me, and then they were complaining about me. But he is very useful for that passive. He's one of the more powerful passives in the game, especially in kind of when healing is the meta, which it has been for a few betas now. The healing's been very big. His active is not quite as good, but it's still pretty good. He can lay down a trail of fire, and anybody that steps in that, it does really good damage, but getting people to walk through it is always the trick, right? Now, you can walk through it, it doesn't hurt you. Your allies walk through it, it will hurt them. Enemies walk through it, it will hurt them. And it does do a lot of damage if you stay in it very long. You can see it kind of peters out there, but by the time it's completely gone, look at our timer down there. It's almost over already, and we can reuse it. Now, what is good for this is, let's say I'm running away and somebody's following me. I can make a nice trail and say, okay, bud, you want to chase me, you got to go through the fire to get them, especially inside a base where the doors are tight and you can't quite get through there as easy. They have to go a different direction. They can't follow you through that fire. So it's a good getaway tactic in that regard, too. I still think the passive is more powerful than the active, but the active is nothing to sneeze at if you can get people to walk through it or use it as area denial. You know, in a capture point, you could fly in, drop fire everywhere. Nobody's going to stand on that capture point. They're going to have to wait for the fire to go out before they can get back on it. So there's a few tricks you can use with him. And then rounding out our 8 is Izzy. Now, Izzy, I'm not the biggest fan of Izzy. I know some people do like her, and I do see her played, so I'm not going to trash on her or anything. Where she does come in well is when you're playing a capping setup with multiple players when you're using a Gwen. Like I said, Gwen does not stack, but Izzy does. So Izzy drops a katana down that lasts for 25 seconds, and that counts as that extra capping point, like Gwen does innately. She counts as 2 lances. Izzy's katana counts for an extra lance also, but it only lasts 25 seconds, and it's on a 50-second cooldown. Now, the problem with that is if you mistime it, you can actually lose the cap and not be able to finish it because you've run out of that 25 seconds. So you have to be tricky with that, but also you can use that to your benefit. And if you're capping either neutral things like at the beginning of a match, or you're capping something and you get about halfway through it, you can drop the katana and leave, and the katana will finish the cap for you, and you can already be on your way doing something else. And I'll show you that in a second. The passive, Izzy automatically hacks enemy deployables within 50 meters of her. It takes 3 seconds. She has to remain in the range the entire time. So people using, like, say, hounds or sentries, turrets, if you're within 50 meters, you don't even have to have line of sight to it. You will automatically try and hack that as a passive, and a lot of times people will go on base capture points and they'll drop turrets and hounds around them to kind of defend in case somebody dives into them right there, and you could just be within 50 meters and all of a sudden their stuff starts turning against them. The turret turns and you hack it and it turns and starts shooting them. So the passive is pretty good. The active is nice because it'll stack. So if you bring three Izzies, you could have 6 capture points with the katanas for 25 seconds with a 50-second cooldown, but it'll all stack, unlike Gwen.
Executing
and if you bring Gwen and an Izzy, then you're even better off because you get Gwen's dome, right? So to drop the katana, we have to be on a capture point. So let's say here, I can drop the katana and take off running. And you can see S2 continues to capture. See the blue around it? It's capturing. Now it's mine. Okay, so my team could then spawn in on that point. And I didn't even have to be there. I could already be over capturing, base B right here. And you can see the katana still hanging around. See the counter down on the right-hand side. It's blinking, and it's gone. Katana disappears. Now the cooldown goes, and I can use it again in a few seconds. So it's a little more selective in how you can use it. You have to be a little more cognizant of how you use it versus Gwen's passive that you just jump in there and automatically count for 2 all the time. But Gwen can't walk away from a capture point and let the katana finish the job either. So definitely pluses and minuses to each side of it, but I prefer to play Gwen usually because I think the dome is super great for capturing points for defense. And that completes our 8. So Arthur Morgan, Nim, Owain, Gwen, Mordred, Kay, and Izzy. I do expect to see more knights in the future, especially when the game comes out. I think it'll run something like seasons. They'll probably release new knights in the seasons, but that's just conjecture at this point. But I expect we'll see new knights along the way at some point. So this is what we've got right now, these 8, and it has been pretty static since Beta 2, like I said, when I started playing. So I don't expect big changes from them. So if you learn them and learn how to play them, they should be around for a while. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you out on the field.